Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiara Banachari Yamuna Tiara Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribadhari Yasoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribadhari Yasoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Badhari Yasoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya in cyberspace. You may wonder why we have class every morning. We already know something. Sometimes we think, oh, we know so much we don't need to know more. And other times we think, oh, I know so little about this that it's not even worth it. But it's like if they give you 1,000 rand, it's not the whole treasury, but it's something. And still there's room for more. You know, the more you get, the more you want. Which people want more money, the rich people or the poor people? The rich people are thinking about more because they have to have more and more and more. Poor people get what they get, and they're... that's the joke. What is it that poor people have, rich people don't need it, and God can't do it? If you figure out any one of those, you can get the other three. What do poor people have? What's it? What is there God can't do? We won't go on until someone figures this out. God can't do it. Poor people have it. And it's what rich people need. No one can figure it? You can't? Well, what is there God can't do? What is it? No. Nothing. Poor people have nothing. There's nothing rich people need, and there's nothing God can't do. So for us, this knowledge is like an ocean without shores. We have to be satisfied with whatever bit we have, and we have to get more. And we don't become frustrated if more people are more advanced than us, because we learn from them, and there's always somebody new that you can help. The idea is each person is being taught by one, while they're also teaching others. I'm glad it's warming up today. My favorite weather is 37 in the day and 27 at night. In Vrindavan, they call that warm. Here you call that hot, right? So, we are reading from the 13th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam? Not the 13th? We won't be reading that because there's 12 cantos. So we'll read from the 4th canto, starting with text 5. What? What is it? 4th canto, right? Yes. Text 5 and 6. I'll just read text 5, and text 6 we can repeat because there's a purport to it. Forgive me if my voice is a little weak. The cold weather didn't help me out today. Evam manda utsikto nirrankusha ivadipaha paryatan ratam ashtaya kampayan ivarodasi. Word for word. Evam, thus, mada anda, being blind with power, utsitaka, proud, nirankushaha, uncontrolled, eva like, dripaha, an elephant, paryatan, traveling, ratam, a chariot, ashtaya, having mounted, kampayam, causing to tremble, eva, indeed, rodasi, the sky and the earth. Translation: when he became overly blind due to his opulences, King Vena mounted a chariot and like an uncontrolled elephant began to travel through the kingdom, causing the sky and earth to tremble wherever he went. Text 6. Then you can repeat this, especially if we don't have it written somewhere besides the book. Okay. Na yastavyam, na datavyam, na hotavyam, dvija kavachit iti nyaiva rayad dharmam peri gosena sarvashaha na yastavanna datavyam na hotavyam dvijakavachit iti nyavarayat dharmam berigoshena sarvashaha na yastavyam na datavyam na hotavyam dvijakavachit iti navaya dharmam berigoshena sarvashaha na yastavyam na datavyam na hotavyam dvijakavachit iti nyavaraya dharmam berigoshena sarvashaha. Repeat. Anyone? Na yastavyam na datavyam. Someone else? We don't have it written on the board? Huh. We used to, didn't we? Oh, they printed it on papers. Huh. Didn't they have papers a couple days ago? I thought I saw papers one day. Okay, anyone else? Anyone can say it from memory? Okay. Na, not. Yastavyam, any sacrifices can be performed. Na, not. Datavyam, any charity can be given. Na, not. Hotavyam, any clarified butter can be offered. Dvijaha, O twice born. Kavajit, at any time. Iti, thus. Navayad, he stopped. Dharmam, the procedures of religious principles. Beri, of kettle drums. Goshena, with the sound. Sarvashaha, everywhere. Translation. All the twice-born Brahmins were forbidden henceforth to perform any sacrifices, and they were also forbidden to give charity or offer clarified butter. Thus King Venu sounded kettle drums throughout the countryside. In other words, he stopped all kinds of religious rituals. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. What was committed by King Venu many years ago is at present being carried out by atheistic governments all over the world. The situation is so tense that at any moment governments may issue declarations to stop religious rituals. Eventually the world situation will become so degraded that it will be impossible for pious men to live on this planet. Therefore, sane people should execute Krishna consciousness very seriously, so that it can go back to Godhead without having to further suffer the miserable conditions predominant in this universe. Om Jnana Timiranya Saganagana Salakaya Chaksurinulatanina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Prabhupada is saying how this being done by King Venu is being done by governments all over the world. And it seems that we don't have such good governments, but we have to figure out how to work with them, because some of them may be inefficient, some of them may be somewhat corrupt in their practices, but the worst part is if they restrict the religious activities. And sometimes we have to learn to get around that, like the country in Dubai. The one devotee was playing the drum and singing in the metro, and someone called the police. And police are so busy here that if somebody calls and says someone's singing and playing a drum, they're not going to bother that, are they? They have bigger things to worry about. They can't even get to all the real crimes, can they? And this is the dichotomy, because before, they used to, I got arrested for living in an Indian area. There was no Indians there, but because it was considered an Indian area, I said, well, why don't I just declare it a white area, and then I'm okay. They said, you can't do that. I said, why? You do that all the time. You change the area and they all have to move out. So this was the situation at that time, and yet we have to consider how to get around the government issues. In Dubai, they can have, like, someone lets them have a large school, and they had a kirtan mela where 2,500 people came every day. They can do that, and they can have programs in homes, and they can rent halls, and they can sell books to the people who are there, but they can't do it on the street. So there's some restriction, but somehow we have to work around those. And other countries are very much against it. There's, the false dichotomy here is that some people think since the new government isn't doing cruelty, that it's perfect, but they have lots of inefficiency and things to work out. But just because they have problems doesn't mean the old government was good. This is a false dichotomy. It's like thinking if the weather in Dubai is 50 degrees Celsius, then you go to Murmansk, Russia, where it's 50 degrees below, and you won't have to worry about heat, correct? You go outside without shoes, they have to cut your feet off because they freeze right away and no circulation. So the solution to that is to go to the other extreme. This is what people think. So in this age, we have to realize that people in the Kali Yuga are misguided, they're ignorant, misguided, and always disturbed. They can never get enough. So we have to be happy even when there's a little something. It's like I asked Jayapataka Swami once, that one disciple seemed to want to take more than he was giving. And I said, how do you reconcile this? He said, well, sometimes you have to judge by the person. He said, the Swami went to the miser's house. The miser doesn't like to give anything. And so he put his cloth out to get a donation. And the miser went and got some coal and put coal in his cloth. And the Swami said, oh, thank you so much. And the miser says, how can you thank me? I put coal in your cloth. He says, because you're such a miser, you're such a greedy person, that any giving you do at all is good. It doesn't even matter what it is. So, in one sense, we accept it if people take a book, if they hear the mantra. Even though it's a long road to the end, at least their spiritual life is guaranteed. We find that the people who go to distribute books, they don't become attached. First, they try to get their attention, and then their interest, and then their desire, and then they ask for money. You see that Vaisheshika, who trains people how to do books, this is what he's doing. If you can't get their attention, there's no point trying to keep talking or chasing them down to the street and then ask for money. Someone says, I have no time and money. Chasing them won't do. If you can't get their attention, then you don't worry. First you get their attention, and then if you can get their interest, then you create a desire, and people are happy with it, and they give you a good donation and apologize for not giving more. Right? It's like if I tell you, I want you to give me 100 Rand right now. You may not want to do it. But if I tell you that I'm selling 200 Rand notes for 100 Rand, now you have no problem, do you? Because if the value is greater than the cost, if the cost of the 200 Rand note is 100 Rand, then you go and get 100 Rand, right? No, you get 100 million Rand and get 200 million in return. But the idea is if the value somehow is greater than the cost, then it's a good idea. And this is hard to convince people because the Krishna conscious lifestyle requires some restrictions and some extra energy, and the cost may be 10 times as much, but the value may be 100 to 1,000 times as much. And so that's what we have to see is the value. Just like the students here that are going to school. If you compare you to someone at the ShopRite, how much do they pay you for going to school? 0, right? And you have to work hard. The chance of failure, you fail any one test and you have to go through the whole thing again, isn't it? So isn't it better just to get a job at the ShopRite? Because if you're in school for 3 years, at the end of 3 years, the people at the ShopRite have more money than you. So is that a better idea? No, because at the end, you will have a job that you enjoy and you'll make more money. Let's just pick a figure, say what do people make at the ShopRite in a year? Somebody have an idea? Someone must have some idea. The people that work at the ShopRite, the checkers and the people who do these. Well, put it this way, when the people finish their education, maybe they made nothing in those years, but the amount they make after it, say they went to school for 5 years. By the next 5 years, they will still have more money than the ShopRite people, even though they worked twice as long. So Krishna consciousness is like that. We have 3 kinds of happiness. Happiness in the mode of ignorance is pain in the beginning and poison, and is poison later on, like getting intoxicated. You feel a little funny, and later you get sick, and then the next day you feel bad. And pleasure in the mode of passion is like nectar in the beginning and is poison in the end. And the pleasure in the mode of goodness, we may go through some austerities. You tell people, we're doing some austerities. Would you like to come to our house tonight? Oh, maybe not. So in people's mind, the happiness in the mode of passion is the best because you get pleasure right away. It's like, I don't know here, but in America, the organized criminals will lend you money and you don't have to go through all kinds of steps to prove that you can pay it back. Because they'll charge you a high interest rate and they break your legs if you don't pay it back. But you get the money right away without having to fill out any paperwork. But if you don't, so people don't know the cost to value ratio. They're working at the ShopRite thinking that they can get money right away. And so people think, let me get pleasure right away because that's what works out. I get it right away. But it's in the long run that counts. Say, I'm going to make you king of the country, but only for 1 minute. Is it worth it? What can you do in 1 minute? It doesn't work out the way we're thinking. So we're seeing here this leader is showing us how we shouldn't be, because we have the leader here is trying to lord it over on the other people, and we find that today many people have a rights-based ethics. The rich people say they have the right to make much more money and pay little because they're creating jobs for the workers. And the workers say, well, we need our rights, we need more money. And the people with none of it say, we need free housing and free food. And each of them is looking at the rights and what they want. But in the Vedic society, we have a duty-based ethics. If the workers do their duty to the employer and the soldiers do their duty to the state and the leader does his duty to the citizens, then everybody automatically gets their rights. And we find this is why we were inclined to do so much for Srila Prabhupada. Jai Shri Shri Radha Radhanath. Because Srila Prabhupada would ask a lot out of people. He would tell them, just like Tamal Krishna Goswami was, he would go with his party to the temples and he would try to get the brahmacharis to join the bus, so people were unhappy with that. So he told Prabhupada, they're unhappy with me, I should just go to China. And Prabhupada said yes. So he went to China. Just like Brahmananda, Prabhupada asked him to come down and help me in South Africa. We saw this, how Prabhupada was trying to take care of the people. I remember when I was in Mumbai and India-Pakistan war was going on, and I was doing the Arctic, and I could see, about as far away as the mall where the ocean was there, and the Pakistan planes were dropping bombs. They were landing in the ocean, but we were that close. And I'm doing the Arctic, and I thought, I'm doing the Arctic while bombs are dropping close by. That's the kind of thing you don't forget. Oh, no, I don't remember that. It's something about it that's... So I used to go into Prabhupada's room after doing the Arctic. And the day after this happened, I would go into Prabhupada's room. I would give him the flour that they offer from this and give him the water. Well, I'm thinking of that with water because I have hearing aids. When we're throwing the water, don't throw it on my head because the hearing aid can't take water. But I'd put the water on Prabhupada's head, but don't put it on my head. Put it on my hand or something. So Prabhupada was talking with Tamal Krishna and a couple other devotees, and then he stopped them. He says, just a minute. And he looks up at me, and he said, so everything is all right? And just like that, it became all right. Prabhupada was very much concerned with helping the devotees out. When he went to New York, he went on a cruise ship, right? Is that right? Did Prabhupada go to New York on a cruise ship? Who says yes? Was it a cruise ship? It's a cargo ship. That's different, right? It's not the same as like a luxury liner. It's a cargo ship. They don't advertise, go on the cargo ship, travel with the cargo. They advertise the cruise. I think some cruise liners must come to Durban. And it's not a cargo ship. So Prabhupada came on that. And when he was in New York, he would go do the kirtan, and then he would prepare the prasadam, and he would make the plates, and then all the people would leave, and he would clean it up. And finally they said, Swamiji, can we help? And he says, yes, I was just waiting for you to ask. So Prabhupada was willing to do the service for everyone else, even more than they were for him. You know, I find at my age traveling is a little hard. That's why I figured this year I'd just come to Durban and not travel all over Africa. But Prabhupada, up until 80s, he was traveling to so many cities. And he would, if he'd get somewhere new, he would just adjust to the schedule. Because like you come from India to here, it's like 4:30 in the morning here is the equivalent of, it would be 8 in the morning in India, or vice versa. So you go some places, like if you go from Los Angeles to London, that 4:30 in the morning is like the time you're going to bed in America. So you wake up at 4:30 and you think, well, let me just sleep for half an hour. And it's equivalent to the time you're going to bed in America. It's 8:30 in the evening. Or if you stay up till 6, it's the equivalent of 10. So you lay down for a few minutes and sleep for 8 hours, and then you're up in the middle of the afternoon. Prabhupada would just adjust to the new schedule. And I saw this when I ended up alone in South Africa. Prabhupada, I told him that Rishi Kumar, who'd come with me, had taken the $2,000. And Prabhupada wrote back that he was very much pleased at the responsibility I'd taken to spread Krishna consciousness in South Africa at such a young age. And he said, I am praying to Krishna that you'll have the strength and enthusiasm to carry out this mission. And it shows because I'm not any great soul. I was just a devotee who was put in a circumstance that had to do some service. And because Prabhupada prayed to Krishna that I would have the strength and enthusiasm to carry out this mission. It's kind of like a difference if we take one of you with no money and no training and say, go invest in the market. And someone else, they give you R1 billion and they train you how to invest. Will that person do better? He will, because he was given the money and the training of what to do. In the same way, Prabhupada gave us the spiritual capital. The Lord Chaitanya says, I'm a capitalist, because it's a spiritual capital. The capital means an asset. It's like a building is an asset. The ownership in the stock is an asset. The supplies at the ShopRite are an asset. In the same way, Krishna consciousness is an asset. And this is an asset that is more valuable than the material assets, because when you die, what percentage you take with you? Is it 20 or 50% when you die? Which one is it? Who can tell me? When you die, what percentage you take with you? What? 0? Not even twice that? You can't take it with you? No? But what about the spiritual growth? Can you take that with you? You can, so isn't that a better asset? It's just like if I make you the owner of the Chatsworth Mall, but for 30 seconds. What can you do? You write a check, but before you finish, it's over. And so we have to realize that these assets come not from what we take from others, but what we give to others. Prabhupada said that we need to repay the debt to the spiritual master, and we can't really repay this debt. But if we all want to try, then we'll preach vigorously as Prabhupada was doing. And part of this preaching comes from our attitude, that if we understand that Krishna is God and all the people are parts and parcels of God, then they all become our brothers and sisters. And if we're trying to connect them with their real source, then people can see that we're doing that and not trying to exploit them. That's why the people like Vaisheshika, when he hands people a book, they become interested in it, because there's a big difference if I say, let me share some things with you that have worked for me and I think it might help you out also. If I say, I like you to do what I'm doing, so you need to do what I'm doing. We don't do it because we like people to do what we're doing. We do it because it's a benefit to them. Our actions is just like our speech. The austerity of speech is it should be truthful, It should be pleasing. It should be beneficial. It should not be agitating to others, and it should be based on spiritual knowledge. The same way when we take actions, we think about them carefully, and then we're sure about it. In the last verse of the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about acting with deliberate spiritual intelligence. And deliberate means we're very sure about it, just like determined. We're very sure about doing it. But deliberate and determined means that we have thought about it and we came to a decision based on the facts. Just like in the court, they say, have you come to a determination or a deliberation, they call it? Yes, we've deliberated that this defendant is guilty of the crime, or this defendant is innocent. And they did that by deliberating all the facts. So we do that in our actions. We deliberate. If I do this, what will be the result? If I do that, what will be the result? And then when we do something, we're sure about doing it. You know, we should apologize later if we make mistakes, but it's much better. It's funny, my father used to train me that. He says, what's Mickey Mouse, a cat or a dog? Quick, which is it? Which is it? Is Mickey Mouse a cat or a dog? Which is it? A what? Yes. See, it's neither one. But if you act too quickly without deliberating on it, oh, he's a cat or he's a dog. And either one is wrong. So we have to consider things carefully and deliberate on them. And King Venu didn't do that. What is the goal of our activities? The goal of our activities should be to please Krishna and to help living entities. It looks like King Venu didn't do that. He became overly blind due to his opulences. You know, sometimes money is the root of all evil. Sometimes lack of money is the root of all evil. But either way, it is the same thing that is the evil. And he mounted the chariot like an uncontrolled elephant, causing the sky and earth to tremble wherever he went. So we have to think our goal should be to please Krishna and to help other people understand Krishna, not how to make people suffer. And if things are going to be forbidden, they should be the things that are not advantageous. But rather than forbidding them, it's usually better to convince people that they don't need them. You give them a higher taste. Prabhupada says that based on the verse in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that even though we have the taste for material things, by experiencing a higher taste, we become fixed in consciousness. You know, in America, they have the war on drugs, and they try to fight different criminal organizations, and then a different one comes in and brings something. And each time a drug comes, it's worse than the one before it. The better thing is to work on the demand. Now what happens is they had drugs like cocaine and amphetamines, which are not so good for you, but they put fentanyl in them now, which you can overdose just by touching it. So people might take cocaine and overdose from fentanyl. Does this worry me? No, because if I don't take any of the drugs, I don't need to worry about what's in them. You know, people know what's in them. You always have to find out what's in something first. When I was making incense here, I went with Duradarshan was here with me for just a short while, and we went to get the different flavorings like orange and coconut and strawberry, and we met with the chemist who makes all the flavorings, and all the bottles are up on the wall. And Duradarshan said, are you the chemist that makes all these sodas? He says, yes, I am. He says, do you drink them? He says, oh, no, I never do. And I said, later, that's a bad sign. If he's the one that makes them, and he didn't say sometimes, he says, oh, no, never. That's not a good sign. He's the one that knows what's in them, and he never drinks them. Now, of course, it's not the worst thing. We don't worry about them. But it's certainly not the best thing either. It's a good thing to find out what's in it, right? To find out what people really mean when they say something. You know, to clarify it. There was the joke like that tells that how you may misunderstand what people are thinking. In America, they have the native Indians. They're really Native Americans, but because Columbus thought he was in India, they called them Indians. So the politician goes to the Indian reservation, and he says, if I'm elected, I will build more schools for the Indian reservation. And they all cheer him, Huniwa, Huniwa. And then he said, if I'm elected, I will build better roads to your reservation. They all cheered, Huniwa, Huniwa. And so he's so excited, and they're taking him out to show him where the farm animals is. And he says, oh, can I go over there where the bulls are? And the Indian chief says, yes, but be careful not to step in the Huniwa. So he thought he was being cheered, but they were saying something different, not to step in the bull dung. There's different words for it which we won't use, but you have to understand what people mean. And we also have to be clear on what we mean. Like I can tell you, I'm listening to what you say with an open mind. That means I'm really considering it, or it might mean I let it in one ear and out the others. So we should deliberate on these things and be very sure. Just like some people are going out to do books, and then they said, well, people argue with them and they wonder what argument. I said, well, you have to think, what is your purpose? Are you going out to argue with people? Then you just stop people on the street and say, today's Monday. If that's your purpose, right? But if your purpose is to distribute books and to engage people in Krishna consciousness, then the purpose isn't to argue. So we have to be clear. So, that might be a good idea. Write down your number, and maybe we can talk about this later. You deflect it, because what's the purpose? I asked them, did you go out there to argue with random people about random subjects, or was the purpose to try to do books? So you have to come. And like someone says, oh, I already read lots of books. Oh, this is perfect. These are books for people who read a lot. Someone says, well, I don't read very often. You know what? That's perfect. These books are for people who don't read. I'm very happy. Oh, these books are for people who are happy because they can understand it. Well, I'm not happy. These books are for people who can be made happy. And all these are true statements. But we have to remember what our purpose is. Now, King Venu's purpose was, he was blinded by these opulences. So what happens is that when someone wants to become more and more powerful, he wants to become the supreme controller and the supreme enjoyer. Doesn't look like he wanted to become the supreme friend, that's for sure. But if Krishna is already the supreme controller and the supreme enjoyer, and we're going to compete with him, what is our chances there? 0. But it might look good for a while. So then, of course, he forbids the spiritual people to do things. So we think with governments, the left always argues against the right. They create things just like there's utility problems in this country. So then some people say, well, this proves that that private utility would be better because they would never have allowed, they don't sell to municipalities and then let municipalities sell to the people. Each person has to apply for their own electricity. But of course that doesn't mean there's problems there, because that group is trying to make extra money. They may charge you, they may give you twice the electricity at 4 times the price. So either of these things has its difficulty, because they're all based in some kind of selfishness and self-centeredness. So what we have to do is see how we can work within the situation. Things were efficient in the apartheid days, but boy, they caused me a lot of trouble. If it was still apartheid, I wouldn't be able to be here. They threatened to throw me off a roof, and they told me I would never be allowed in the country. I said, that's okay, you're throwing me out now, but someday you'll be gone and I'll get to come back. And they tried to restrict us. That's why they bought the people here like Ranjit and Rita and people who are South African origin, because all of you, they can't throw you out of the country, but they can throw me out of the country. But we find now that there's some inefficiencies. But the government today never causes our temple any problem. They don't show up here and think of ways to deport people. They like the work that we're doing. So within that framework, we have to realize we do a lot better. In Dubai, they're much more restrictive, but devotees figure out how to work with that and how to preach within the circumstances. So we have to find out that, in this age, there's always some kind of difficulty. So we have to look for the positive points. Just like when you go to do the books, you don't look for all the reasons the person wouldn't want to book, or wouldn't you find the ones they can. So the same way with advising people and government officials, we have to look for the things they're doing right and convince them to do more of that right. To start from somewhere. Prabhupada says we go in. Did I say something you didn't like? Did I say something you didn't like, or you need to go somewhere? Okay. All right, good. Just checking. So we have to look for the ways that we go in like a needle, out like a plow. We have to greet people here and let them know they're welcome and they can take as much or as little as they want, not because of what we do, because at other churches how they are. You go to some churches and they look at you and they say, you don't look like one of us. What are you doing here? And people are more afraid of being included. They'll talk to you in the foyer for 5 minutes and then say, now you want to join this church and never go anywhere else? And you're thinking, can I read a book about it maybe, or go inside and see a service? Because if the person just meets you and they want you to join the church without seeing it, that means they want you to have faith in them, not faith in God. Prabhupada says that the faith is based on knowledge. We inquire submissively and render service. The blind faith may not be good. We need to get some knowledge. Of course, blind doubt, just doubting anything, is not good either. So we allow people to come and take it to whatever degree they want. Just come and watch us. Let people know that they're welcome to take as much or as little as they want. Because some places they either don't want you, or they think once you've walked in, you belong to them now. And we realize people belong to Krishna, but Krishna allows this choice, so we do also. But we try to make it attractive enough that they want to choose our product. It's like if we're selling prasadam in an open market where there's lots of other things. We can't force them to buy the prasadam and not the other things. But we can make it attractive and tasty and be friendly people so that they will want this. And that's what we have to do. We don't force people, we make them want it. And we have to realize in this day and age, if the leaders are not doing like King Venu, are not forbidding the sacrifices, and they use clarified butter. Why would clarified butter be better than just plain butter? Aren't they the same thing? If the same substances are there, isn't it the same thing? Just like H2O is water, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. Well, wouldn't 2 parts hydrogen and 2 parts oxygen also be water? It's the same thing, hydrogen and water. They're both water, right? They're not. The second one is hydrogen peroxide, and it weighs much more because oxygen weighs 32 times as much as hydrogen. So it's not the same thing. It's like butter is slightly acidic. Excuse me. But ghee is high alkaline, and high alkaline foods will prevent you from getting cancer, like spinach and lettuce and dal, actually, and the ghee. So using ghee is much better than using butter. So they're forbidding them to use this. They're causing people pain. So we have to realize, in one sense, if the leaders are not perfect, but they're not stopping us from doing devotional service, then what we should be happy with that and keep an inroad to these people so that we can show them a better way. Because wherever people are at, they have some good qualities and we can encourage them, whether they're inside or outside a temple. And wherever they're at, no matter how many good things they have, you can always improve. That's why we think of our Krishna consciousness not as something we put on the wall, like that you're alumni of a certain high school or a college, but something that you want to work on and improve every day. You know, it's the kind of thing you think, well, you have to do that every day. It's kind of like breathing and eating. You know, they're important, but you don't have to do them every day, right? Is that true? No, it's not true. So we have to see the qualities of this person. And some of the governments are like that. So we have to be happy when they're not like that. But sometimes when they create restrictions, then if somebody gets something, like if it's open market and you can buy anything you want at that mall, but if all of a sudden they make jeans illegal and you have some to sell, people will be interested in them, won't they? If it's available at every shop at the mall, it's no big deal. But if it's something that people can't get, it becomes interesting. You know, books in Russia, they would take one book and they would put them together like with paper things, and people were so interested in something they couldn't get. So we have to be happy when we do have the freedom of religion, and that we can use this to convince people to become better people. Because no matter where they're at, we can always improve. And we should be happy for the situation when we're not being restricted. Some of these countries restrict very heavily. In Liberia, the devotees there were killed by the government many years ago. You know, and they were Americans, and Liberia owes its existence to America, and yet they killed American devotees. It owes its existence because President Monroe, the fifth president of America, he would stop the slave ships from coming to Africa, and he didn't send them back to the places they came from, but sent them to the place that was Liberia, and they started their own country, and they named the capital city after President Monroe, Monrovia. And yet still, they killed American people there. So we see that in this country, you don't have that. The apartheid government threatened to throw me out the 13-story window, but it didn't actually happen. So we have to work within the situations, realizing that governments can do better because they don't know exactly how to act. But at least if they're not stopping us from spiritual activities, we have a good chance to influence people. And we have to be happy for whatever things that we get and try to build on that. And that we have an inroad to the average people and to government. We use this to show them that there's a better way to live so that they won't want to become like King Venu. Because it sounds like he's doing well. He's in charge and he's forcing everything to go his way. But that isn't going to work for long, as we'll find out later. So are there any questions or comments or corrections? Swarup Damodar, you have anything to add? He's way down there in the north corner. Is that the north corner down there? That's north that way? Whereas east is something like that. Anybody have anything to add or any questions? So King Venu is mentioned in the Bhagavatam. We should become like him? No? But he's a leader. Any question? Srinivata, something to say? Nothing? Was it so bad there's no comment? You don't like King Venu? He'll definitely pay attention to you. I guess we'll end there then. And we'll lecture tomorrow on the next verse, which will be verse 7. But that will be tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day. Hare Krishna. That's the other thing too, is that we try to encourage people to become Krishna conscious wherever they're at. And we base things on principle. If like somebody lights up a cigarette outside, you don't say, you can't smoke here. Say, I'm sorry, sir, smoking is not allowed. It's not like you can't smoke and he can't, but it's the smoking that's not allowed. But you say it in a way that presents the principle. I'm sorry, we don't bring shoes in the temple. You can't bring shoes. I can, but you can't. That's what people are thinking. But it's not that, it's a principle, not the people. All right. So it's more organized here than Mauritius, huh? I guess that's why they told me to come.